Welcome back to SPD911. I'm your host, Dr. Jake Taylor Jacobs, with the illustrious Sharon Green Golding. And today we're talking about something that's going to blow your socks off. We're talking about technology in sterile processing and why it's working and why on other accounts it is not. Let's get started. This show is all about tracking the toughest challenges in sterile processing. Is that we live in a world where shadowing is considered training.
SPD911, we stand together.
You're not successful if you work in a 9 to 5. Like
the tears, raw and real, we face the fight, supporting each other, night and daylight.
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Welcome back to the show, SPD911. We are your emergency line for frontline workers in sterile processing, from the leaders, also from those that are picking up those heavy trays every day. We come to you to deliver you information that you could use while you're on the floor, hopefully some inspirational things to get you along your week. Brought to me every show is the star of the show, Sharon Green Golden. Come on up to the stage. She's our director of compliance with sterile processing, a matriarch in sterile processing, and also one of the greatest of all time. SGG, what's going on with you?
How are you today?
I am happy, girl. You got your blonde white hair on with the backdrop right, and you're looking all spectacular, girl.
Listen, I'm out here in Arlington, Virginia at the Amy Standards. I took this hour away to come do SPD 911.
Come on, Amy Standards. How's it going there? I know you can't share some stuff, but how's it going?
It's deep. Let me just say that. To be in the room with research experts and to dialogue with them, they're on a really high level. We're down here and we're trying to get them to keep us where we can understand what they're talking about. But it is very interesting. The work that we're doing is needed. And I'm excited to be a part of working towards the revision of ST729, which is one of the groups I'm on. It's time. We haven't done anything since 2017. Times have changed. Standards are changing. Technology has changed. And we need to have all of that encompassed in this standard. And so as I go towards the end of my tenure as a professional in this field, it's a good feeling to be a part of this dialogue.
And you're setting the temperature or the pace for the next decade or so of ruling and regulation. So it's a great way for you to a storybook ride off on your chariot, girl.
That's right. That's right. As you go into the sunset to do a few good things on the way out.
For some of people that don't know SGG, can you talk about at least from this portion? Because I think sometimes when people think about regulation, setting laws, setting rules in place, it's just easy to come to a compromise or easy to come to a yes where everyone can at least agree or be amenable toward it. Can you talk about maybe some of the difficulties that you experience when trying to create these standards?
Well, the basic thing for standards is that it is the end user, which is the person who's actually following the standard, the writers of the standard, and then the research professionals who have actually researched and done the work to say, this is what you have to do. The reason the IFU says do it underwater is because we tried to do it out of the water and it wasn't clean. Or we tried to skirt this particular standard and it didn't work. So as you say, it's bringing all of these people together and us coming to a consensus as to what the standard should say, how it should be said, and if the end user will be able to understand it and follow it. Because to have a book full of rules that nobody understands means that you allow them to lean to their own understanding. And what we do know in sterile processing is that we will come up with a rule and a way, and we will stand on it. We'll say, this is what they told me, this is how you do it, without any backing. The standards give you the actual backing, the evidence-based practice to say, no, this is how it's supposed to be done. No ifs, ands, or buts. And we have a voice. We need more end users in this particular standard, because we're the ones doing the work. And I'm just going to tell you, from having an engineer daughter, engineers, their job is to make it and to make it work. They don't care if we can clean it. That's not their scope of practice. We're trying to tell them that needs to be your scope of practice. How do we can we take it apart and clean it? Is it easily cleanable? That should be in your scope of practice. But for the most part, their job is to say, open, shut. Yes, it opens, it shuts. Now, what goes on in the middle, that's y'all's problem. And so the reason we're all in the room together is to say, that's our problem. You made it open and shut, but I have to clean what's on the inside. So I need for you to help me with that. So people should be involved who are in this profession, Dr. J. They should, hospitals don't pay for us to do a whole lot of these particular committees, but it is important. And I will tell you this, when an institution or a hospital understands the exposure they get for having their team members be a part of this, they get it. They understand, listen, I need to support this. Everybody should want to be on the bottom line of new, evolving standards that are going to stand for years. Like I say, ST79 has been the rule and the standard since 2017. The time before that, it was 2010. So 7 years between 2010 and 2017. And now here we are at 2026, and we're just beginning to do the legwork, the grunt work, to get ready to say we've got to change this standard, because a lot of things have changed and people are so confused, and SPD technicians are making rules up as they go. So I've said for the last 4 years we needed to fix this standard, and now we're actually doing work towards it, and representing SIPs and being able to be on the team that when that book is written, it will say we were there in the trenches doing this work is something that I want to see finished.
And I'm excited because our founder, Karen Cherry Brown, was on that original squad.
Yes.
So to have Sharon Green Golden be on this current squad is definitely an honor for us to be able to have and to share. So, today we're talking about technology.
Okay.
And we're talking about the ups and the downs of technology, and the reason why it works versus doesn't work within organizations all over the country. And I kind of want to phase in a little bit from what you're currently dealing with right now, because we talk about these standards and being a part of Amy's standard, and being in that process of developing this technology. Can you tell me from your experience or from your vantage point, what technology gets wrong outside of Sterile By Design? We're talking Sterile By Design absolutely follows Amy's standards and makes sure that the hospitals do. But can we kind of talk about what traditional tracking softwares do right or get wrong when it comes to ensuring a solvency within a sterile processing department?
Well, you have to go back to when we didn't have technology at all, to the point of a tracking system. The adage is, back in the day, we did our trays with, back in the day, we had a tray list, Dr. J, that we typed up with the actual order of the tray that the OR wanted it in on a piece of paper, and we had a book that sat on the table, and we put the list in. On the page, and you would flip to the tray you were doing, and you put the tray together, looking at that list. Now that was we thought we were doing something then, because Lord, we had a list that said 2 cocas, 4 Adsons, 5 male scissors curved, 2 straight, and we would put our tray together, standing there looking at this big book on the table. You had a book for cardiovascular, book for urology, book for neuro, book for GYN. Every specialty had its own book. And when you got a tray, you had to go get the book you needed where you would find that list. And then we advanced and said, well, that's good, but everybody should have their own list, because when I need to do my tray, you got the book. So we started typing up tray lists, and we'd go to file cabinets and we would actually file away the tray list, GYN, DNC. So you could go and pull a piece of paper out and you go back to your station and put the paper down, and you would check off on the paper 2 cocas, 4 Adsons, 5 scissors. And we thought we had evolved. We're like, yes. Then we realized we were still missing items on trays, because what it allowed people to do was to memorize trays. So a lot of the old school people memorized the tray. They didn't want no paper. They didn't want a book. I've been putting this tray together for 10 years. I know what it is. One of the problems that came in was as you removed and or added instruments, I didn't put that in my notebook. I kept doing it the same way I've been doing it for 10 years. Along came, we said we have to be able to hold people accountable. And it's hard to hold me accountable to a piece of paper. Sometimes I can find the paper, sometimes I can't. You made a change on the paper, you forgot to make the new copies and put them in the file cabinet. So a lot of things happened with the paper. The book wasn't working, the paper wasn't working, and we weren't able to hold people accountable. So we came up with we said we need to be able to track what we're doing was the biggest thing at first. I need to be able to track what I'm supposed to put in the tray, how many, and when. And within that process, Dr. Jake, they said, well, we should be able to track where this tray is going, where it came from, and tracking systems started to evolve with the technology. And they only evolved as well as the person putting the system together's dream was. How far did you dream? Well, I dreamed that we just need to be able to put a tray together. You dream that you should be able to know where the tray is going in the OR. The next person came along and said, well, we should know when it comes back. Then they said, well, once it comes back, we should know if it came back sprayed. Did it come back with all the instruments? How, what condition was it in? So as the dream grew, tracking systems have evolved. Part of the problems that they did not really work out was, one, old school people hate change. New school people hate change, but old school people hate change. And they had to spend a lot of time getting old school to say, you can do this on the computer, because they were like, I can't do no computer. I don't have no computer at home. I don't know nothing about a computer, and I'm not gonna make it work. And when people set their mind to what they can't do, they don't work hard to get it done. That's right. So here we had to bring in a tracking system and then motivate the human beings that were going to have to use the tracking system to learn it. It wasn't just a one click. You had to scan yourself in. You had to remember to scan yourself out. You had to remember to scan the tray in. You scan the right tray in to get the right ticket to come up. You had to know that you were doing a DNC tray, and that's what it said at the top. So when you ask me what did we get wrong, I think we didn't take enough time to really visualize the steps it would take to get the human factor to use the tracking system correctly. And then systems cost money, Dr. J. The hospital didn't always buy the best system. They didn't always buy a system that went the whole trip. Some of the systems stopped halfway in the middle of the trip. I can only track my tray. I can't track it to the autoclave. I can't track it out of the autoclave. I can't track it as it comes through the washer. So as we evolved, we realized a lot of steps were missing because we were still being held accountable for incomplete trays that came back from the OR incomplete, but we had no way to prove it. No data collection, no information, just news, a story. And when you're going to try to say someone's doing something wrong, you have to be able to prove it with actual facts. Well, that piece was missing from some tracking systems. They just allowed me to put a tray together. And so we didn't get it right because I think that we in general were in a rush to put something to market and make some money. Does that make sense to you?
Yep.
Put something to market and make money. And hospitals, we would like, oh, we would go to meetings, Dr. Jake, and say, oh, there's a system that I can do my tray and it'll tell you how long it took me to do the tray. And then I can track it to the autoclave. Well, no, I can't track it to the autoclave because I don't have the part from the autoclave that allows me to put the information from the autoclave back into the tracking system.
Got another module.
This is missing. When I want to go and prove that I ran the total knee instruments on the right time according to the IFU, I can't prove it with my tracking system. I still got to do that by hand. And I have to hope that Mary Lou wrote that down, that this was the Stryker system and it runs for 4 minutes versus at that time, this was Synthes and it runs for 10 minutes. So a lot of components were left out. And then Dr. Jake, and don't anybody write me no letters. The system I had, anytime we wanted a new data point, we had to pay for it. And so now I had to go back to the CFO and say, the tracking system won't give me the data as to how many trays we process a year. It only gives me what we processed this week. But if we buy this module, I can get that data. And they're like, we're not buying no more modules. We already paying for this by the year, by the month, however they're paying. We're not buying no more modules because every time you need a module, then you need another module. And we really did need different modules. Anytime I would wake up in the middle of the night and say, you know what? I really think we ought to be able to know productivity-wise how many trays Jake is really doing a day.
That's right.
And the company would say, yes, we could get you that information. You're going to have to buy a module. You don't have that. You didn't buy that package. You bought the basic package. And now you need an upgrade. And once you upgrade, now you need another upgrade. And so as upgrades became available, my hospital was like, no, we really don't need that. I'm saying we need to track the tray to the patient. They're like, no, because we're gonna have to buy another computer. We're gonna have to buy some more scanners for the OR. We're gonna have to train the OR team to scan the tray into the room, scan the tray out. No, we really don't have time for that. So technology that was there, the availability to go to the moon was basically there, but the cost to get to the moon was not relevant to the system that had to pay for it. Because you have to understand that sterile processing, anytime we come up and say we really need something new and great to make our process better, to help us to prove what we're doing, we always have to literally come to the meeting and fight. Yes, I know that if you had this Borescope machine, it would help you to see in the instrument and see it was dirty before you sent it to the OR, but we really don't want to spend that $4,000. Well, if we give a patient an infection, to clear a patient that isn't dying and sick is about $20,000. The Borescope wasn't but $4,000. Adding the module to the tracking system was only going to cost you $5,000 more a year. And when you look at the whole picture of how many SSIs we're having at the hospital and how much you have to pay to get these patients whole, that $9,000 was a drop in the bucket. But they don't always see that side of the picture. And they really don't see why people who are, Dr. J, cleaning instruments, why do you need so much technology? Because every time something goes wrong and you ask me why, I can't answer it because I don't have the data points to prove it. What I tell you is a general story. What happened was we did this, we did this, we did this. Well, if you have great technology and you buy the whole package, it's like buying the car and don't buy the steering wheel or the wheels. You're not going far. But you do have a body of a car, but you're not going nowhere. So to get people to understand, when I buy a car, I'm insisting on having the steering wheel and all four wheels. I want the doors, I want windows, I want the hood, I want a brake, I want a gas pedal, I want everything when I buy the car, because that's what I need to get around, to get people when they're spending money for a system to say, this is sterile processing, and this car you buying, we don't want the Yugo. I know there's a Yugo out there, but we need the Cadillac. We need the Cadillac. That's what we need for our patients. And I used to say that to my CEO. Our mission statement says we take care of the patient, mind, body, spirit, the whole patient. But if we don't do what we need to do in this department, we're letting them down. And you find out when there's an issue. And that's a little late to come to the game.
And I think SGG, what makes Sterile by Design so potent and amazing is that we're wholly integrated. So we don't have to go outside of our company to provide true support to the hospital. And then two, I think a lot of the traditional technologies were so hyper focused on tracking instruments and trays that it forgot to make sure that we supported and helped the actual technicians and the leaders that are pushing the instruments and the trays.
Yeah.
And then two, when we talk about a cost variance to the hospital, you look at how much implementation fees cost and how certain tracking, legacy tracking systems and companies will charge you an arm and a leg for 8 hours of training and say, hey, that's enough. You got to figure the rest out. You know, look at modules. And then we assume or don't really realize how much it takes for someone to just get used and be okay with a change, let alone an entire system change that now I'm going to be held accountable, my job accountable to. I don't think that was taken into account. And I think that that's why we're so big on one, it's all modules or no modules. One, we don't piece off modules because there's no value to the sterile processing department if you only get one piece of a whole wheel or a system. The second thing we love about Sterile by Design and our framework is that there's no implementation fee. We don't charge implementation fees to get you going. And I think those are the things that if it only can happen if it came from an organization or people that worked in sterile processing every day, to actually be able to build a technology and a system that can really support folks in the space. So I do have a question. When we talk about tech, SGG, it seems like in some facilities that have all the modules and even the smaller ones, everything is tracked, yet problems still somehow surprise leadership. And the question is, why do we still feel behind even when everything is being tracked? Where, you know, you go into the software, you can pull every report in the world. However, when we do an assessment at a facility or we work with some of those leaders, they're still operationally blind. Why do you think they're still operationally blind?
Well, we say everything is being tracked. Everything is not being tracked.
That's good.
Unless you actually put a system together with someone that is actually technically doing the consultation, you won't know what you missed. So yeah, you're tracking basic trays. You're tracking trays to the shelf. You're tracking trays from into decon, from decon to the sink, from the sink to the washer, from the washer to the holding table. But you're not tracking how the tray got back to the shelf if it wasn't used, and did it get back to the right shelf, and did I FIFO when I put the tray back to the shelf. So here the problem today is I couldn't find the tray. It says it's on the shelf. The tracking says, yes, it went back to the shelf, but we didn't track where I put it actually on the shelf. That part was left out of a module. That's not there. That's not there. You just scan the shelf 2B. Well, today, Dr. Jake, I put it on shelf 2B, back corner left. but it really supposed to be on 2B right corner. It's
Right.
not there.
That's right. That's right.
So now the problem today is we have a patient that needs the tray, we can't find it. Or I scanned it to the shelf, but I didn't really put it on the shelf because I was busy talking, and I turned around and answered a question for you and forgot what I was doing. And when I got through talking to you, I just stuck it on the shelf. So now it's not even on 2B left. It's over on the shelf with the urology stuff. It's supposed to be over on GYN. So tracking systems can only track what they have been designated to track according to what we told them to track. And so we get in trouble, even though we have tracking systems, because we're not looking at everything. We're not looking at when we bring a load out of the sterilizer that I went and took a piece of cardboard and stuck it on top of my sterile trays that just came out hot, saying don't touch. But the cardboard is contaminated. I'm not even supposed to have no cardboard. I'm even supposed to have a piece of paper with a word, don't touch. We have to find a different way to mark that load. And so, or the fact that the wrapper is coming apart as you bring it out of the sterilizer. Nobody paid any attention to that because there's no tracking for that. How is the load when it comes out? Are we able to scan and say this is a good load? We can stand behind and let it cool. So when you come to get the tray later for a case, you notice that the wrapper's loose and you can't use it for your case. Now we've got to run and try to reprocess a tray. There are a lot of holes in what is done in sterile processing that is not tracked. And it's because if your tracking system is not put together by the end user, the people doing the tracking, I'm the only one can tell you that, listen, they're not FIFOing at the biggest and the best hospitals in the world. They're not doing it. They think they are, but you can go any day to a shelf and find a tray from 2021 on the shelf and trays from 2026 on top of that tray. And they keep pulling the 2026 tray out every day. They never get to that 2021 because there's no need. But no one with the tracking system, scanning, whatever we did, even paid any attention to that. So there are evidence is there for the holes of what we don't always see. The actual process is not always followed all the way through. Some tracking systems are made just to get to an end point. Do you have a tray? Yes. That's all they wanted to know. Did the tray meet all the requirements? We don't know about that. We didn't track that part. We just tracked that we did process a DNC tray. The fact that it didn't have an indicator in it, the fact that it was in the wrong container, the fact that it did not get sterilized the right amount of time. We didn't track that. So you are working in a certain amount of blindness. You think you see everything is all right, but when you really delve down into the actual process, you find out that it isn't.
So when we talk about the technology, and now we're talking about all of these holes and spots that are not being tracked, let alone not manually tracked. Outside of technology, now we start talking about automation and AI and all of these buzzwords now that all these technologies are quoting that it can do. What should be fixed before adding the technology? Because, you know, we have a thesis here. You should not put new wood on termite infested floors. It does not matter how cool or how strong the wood is. Eventually, the termites will eat up the new wood and you will end up in the same position that you're in. And so we have our methodologies of what needs to be fixed before we lay technology into an organization, which does take a little bit more time, but it's absolutely the best move for a hospital. And it slows down the overwhelming feeling that people have when it comes to change, because it's something that was paraded over time versus just instantly installed the next day. So can you talk about the cause and effects of adding automation on top of broken processes, and what should be fixed before adding more tech?
Well, one thing that I found was that you cannot add technology, as you say, to a broken process. You first got to have a process, and the process has to be working right for the technology to pick up and say, this is what we're supposed to do. If we are not following the basic instructions for use for the actual cleaning of instrumentation, bringing in a system that lets me scan a tray to the sink doesn't help, because that doesn't hold me accountable for what I'm supposed to do once I scanned it to the sink. And the problem is the instruments aren't clean. Not that they didn't get to the sink, they're not clean. So I think that you have to, it's like you have to mirror the process. And then once you have the process mirrored, it's like following somebody. If you're going to give somebody a map, before they drew a map, they had to actually take the trip. That's how they knew you turn left on 5th Street, go down 2 blocks, turn right on 6th Street. Well, if you just go and say, draw a map, you don't know that. So I'm still going straight on 7th Street. I never get to 6th Street because you didn't show me that. You have to show all of the steps, Dr. Jake, in the process, and then monitor with technology all of those steps. The standard says put an indicator in the hardest area for steam to reach. Well, then you need to track that, and you need to be able to know I had an indicator, and you need to know I'm putting the indicator in the tray. Now that we're tracking this process, no tray should be getting to the OR without an indicator.
That's right.
But what we basically are able to track right now is I did a tray, and I said I put an indicator in it. I had a tracking system, Dr. Jake, where I actually put at the top 2 indicators. They had to click, and say they put them in the tray. Well, there's a disconnect between the click and in the tray, because there was never in the tray.
There was never no click. There was never no tray.
They hit the click. They hit the click, but their fingers never got the indicator in the tray, because you're dealing with the human factor. I'll do it at the end. I'll do it in the mind. I'll do it. I'm going to click that I did it. Click. So here the tray gets to the OR. They call me and say, I got Jake's tray again today with no indicators. I look at your data from you doing the tray. You said you had 2 indicators. I have to come back and say, Jake, you say you had 2 indicators. They say they had none. Oh, yeah, I clicked it. I was going to put them in, but I forgot. Well, we have to have something that follows you, that makes you do that, and or definitely holds you accountable. You know, I said at a meeting one time, I wish we had robots that could ensure that we had indicators in the tray, because the human factor seems to not be able to do that. Not just every once in a while. This is a daily occurrence in hospitals everywhere in America. They get a tray without an indicator, or they get a tray where the person was passive aggressive and they threw 20 indicators in the tray, because they say, you won't say I don't have no indicators no more, so here's 20. Well, the rule says that the OR team has to look at every indicator you put in the tray to make sure it passed. So if you give them 20 indicators, they've got to take out 20 indicators. And if one of them has a problem, the tray is contaminated. So the reason we said 2, because we know 2 ought to be able to make it. 20, we don't know if you had 20 in a pile and the one on the bottom, steam didn't reach. We don't know what happened, but we know we can't use that tray. So it's holding people being able to follow a process, and then the system helping me to not only just train you, but to hold you accountable to your process, to what you did. It's no longer, I think Jake's a good tech. I think he does it right. I now can say, no, Jake, not a good tech. No, here's the data. Here's the data that shows Jake can never get a tray complete in a timely manner. If he does get it in a timely manner, it's missing the indicators, or he put it in the wrong container, or he didn't wrap it the right way, or he processed it on the wrong time. Now, when I talk to you, Jake, the technology is backing up the data.
That's right. That's right. So I'm going to break and pause here for a quick second for a small little insert. This is, now we're talking about the tech, right? Now we got to show you a piece of the tech. In SGG, you see her emotions got excited about the importance of indicators. So obviously, in the indicators is an indication that the indicators gave her a big issue when she was running her department. So I'm actually going to share my screen real quick and show you a small piece of our technology in Sterile By Design. So one of the biggest things I want to show really quick, one of the issues that a lot of softwares kind of deal with is that it cannot stop people from double scanning the same set, SGG. So what we noticed was going into certain facilities, when you scanned in a set, we saw that there were double scanning and triple scanning of the same sets several times, to where it looked like the technicians had high productivity, which in fact it doesn't. So one thing I'm going to do right here, I'm just going to put in our tech. And one thing you're going to be able to see here, I'm going to zoom in close. What does that say, SGG?
Child, you know, I can't see that.
Do I need to make it closer? Hold on. You got them Q glasses on.
This set is already decontaminated.
Now let's stop real quick. Just saying that in itself, SGG, how powerful is it to have a technology that can stop somebody from double, triple, and quadruple scanning of the same set or tray that they haven't went through, that they haven't processed yet? How powerful is that?
That is powerful, because now they're not, I know that they're not back there, as you say, just scanning stuff to be scanning. This told you this tray was already decontaminated, so you need to be moving to another step. So that's very important.
So here's where at the step with assembly, SGG, where now we have where they have to get their tray, their prep area. They have to submit and yes or no that it's done. But let me try to skip putting the indicator in. I just want to skip this step. I want to skip QA. I'm gonna skip everything in the set assembly phase. Once I try to skip, notice what happens. What pops up is the technology is telling us, hey, there's a missing chemical indicator. That the analysis indicate that no chemical indicator was placed in this set. For patient safety and compliance, please enter and place the right chemical indicator into the set. It lets you know, this is my favorite part right here, SGG.
Yes, your supervisor has been
notified. So not only that, this ensures that leaders, you can't catch or see everything. But in our technology, SGG, what we built was the ability for a leader to be able to run their department while doing all the rest of their other organizational things. Now, it takes about 40 seconds for the leader to be re-notified or let to be known. So until then, until the system pops up and notifies us, what I want to notice here is that this says right here that sterilizer 1 capacity has been reached. Within our technology, SGG, we even can set the load capacity of each of the sterilizers, and our technology chooses the sterilizer that is open for that specific set based on this IFU. I think that's the coolest thing in the world.
It is.
Because it allows for the load or the sterilizer not to be overloaded or not to have ghost washes in the process. And, you know, going through this process and then doing the technology as we see it, it's very simple how even with the technology and we process through, we ensure that they have to QA their own trays. Pictorials are already done here. And then there's impossible, again, for them to be able to move on without putting that chemical indicator in on that process right there.
And that's important. And overloading of sterilizers is something that's done every day. Because they're trying to get the loads in. You understand, you got the human factor that's trying to meet an end, right? The end is I got to get this load done. And so I got 40 trays here. they will pack a sterilizer, but the IFU and the standard says you can only have so many trays on a on a rack, and it's supposed to have some room in between it, Dr. J, so that the steam can actually get in and sterilize. When you pack, it's like packing a freezer. You pack it tight with everything you can. Nothing else can get in there to really do anything. So to be able to say, stop, this tray will not go on this load, is important. And to know, I think that when you're dealing with the human factor, anytime I know that my leader knows I've done something I shouldn't have done, it helps me to straighten up. You may know this time, but I'm gonna have my indicator the rest of the times, because I don't want you coming to see me. Because a good leader that gets this message, they're either calling the department saying, hello, Jake, what happened? I got notice. I got it. I don't want my boss calling me. So to know that I may have done it and was about to get away with it, but the alarm system let everybody know, will help me get myself together if I have good sense.
And on top of that, SGG, not only with that, you can go ahead. Not only with that, y'all, Avery's. Oh, we didn't see you, Avery. Not only with that, the whole goal is just full transparency. As you're running your organization, one, because it makes it easier for you to actually help and develop the people in your organization. If I know where you keep falling short, and two, you know, when it comes to processing or running support within your technology or within the system, the biggest thing that we have to take into account is that it's not a tattletale system. You know, the goal isn't to expose the areas that you're weak, it's to make strong the areas that you may be skipping at some points in time. And so SGG, that moves me to my last question. For those that are scared about technology, automation, artificial intelligence, and all those other things, for our fifth question and our last question, what skills will still matter as SPD becomes more automated? What skills do you believe would still matter?
You still have to have the ability to do critical thinking. The automation isn't going to take away good sense and the ability to do critical thinking. It can help us, but the human factor still has to do their part. Automation is not going to be able to still pick that instrument up, Dr. Jake, and say it's still dirty. You're going to need the human factor for that. Automation is not going to physically be able to say, when I actually look at this load, even though it says it's okay, I'm looking at it and I know something still has to come off. Or I see that you have wrapped the trays wrong. Or I see that you've got peel packs and you don't have them on the cart right. Automation isn't going to take that away at this point. You still need the human factor. I know that people buck technology. We don't like technology because we see all these little commercials where it says, I was working in the factory and then technology came in and everybody's job went away. This job is still going to require that we are able to know what is clean, what isn't clean. That's not going anywhere. We're still going to have to be able to know this has rust on it or it has blood on it. This needs to go back to decontamination to be re-cleaned. Automation will do some things, but there's a lot of things that sterile processing technicians have to do that automation isn't going to be able to take away. It is a helping hand to an end. It helps us to do our job better. Having a system that can help me to be sure that I followed all protocols is very important. It helps me and keeps me from having to think about that part. But automation in sterile processing, and this is just my belief, will never be where you don't need but one human being that reads a report every once in a while. You're still going to need human beings in sterile processing to do a lot of the cleaning part and the putting together part. Now, I will tell you, Dr. Jake, there is automation out there that will build a tray for us. If they have a robot that can put trays together. They programmed what goes on the tray. You go in and you push the button and it builds you a DNC tray. It doesn't know that when I looked at this instrument, it still was dirty. It just knows it's supposed to put 2 cocos on the tray. So you need the human being that's loading the instruments into that particular robot to check the instruments before they go into the robot for cleanliness. That's not going to go away. This particular instrument has a prong that's a little bent. It's out of line. Or sometimes our instruments, Dr. Jake, have to meet exactly. Well, you can get a robot that's going to be able to do that to a point, but that's going to take away the time that you said this robot could build a tray. So you're going to still need the human being to check those things out before they put them into the robot that's going to build the tray. So people are scared of automation. They don't want it. We don't want it because look like my job going away. No, a lot of people do not run to SPD to work, Dr. J. That's not one of the places you see people lining up saying, I'm going to work in SPD. That's not where they want to be. Nobody wants to clean blood and body fluids all day long, lift 25-pound trays all day long. So your job is secure, and the automation, the bells and whistles that come with technology that makes sure you pack the tray right, that keeps you from having to redo the tray.
That's right.
This is helping you. The one that makes sure you put the indicator in. Now I don't have to worry about this tray coming back. We're not spending money, Dr. Jake, redoing trays for no reason other than I didn't put an indicator in it. It was clean. It had all the right instruments. Everything was working. And I didn't put an indicator in. And now you have to start over. So it will save money. I think people have to understand, because money is part of this. It will save money and time overall if you get a very good working system technology that helps you to do better.
And I like what Donnie said there, SGG, that automation will support processes, not replace critical thinking and problem solving abilities. Because that goes right hand in hand with you. But when we think about our technology, a lot of times we get inundated with the data analytics. We get inundated with forecasting, labor forecasting, how many FTEs you need in that moment. We get inundated with now when joint commission comes, now we got to find all of our logs and find all of our support and figure out if we have those things in place. We get inundated with tracking to make sure that we have proof that people in our organization, they're progressing and they're developing, and then figuring out where those logs are before someone retires or leaves the job. We get inundated with a coordinating, liaison, and instrument coordinating, supply coordination, OR liaison, and then communicate, making sure everyone on every shift communicates with each other and knows that a schedule is coming up or instrument needs repair or new supplies need to be supported and done. And the beautiful thing about our Sterile By Design system, SGG, is that it does it all. It is your 24/7 coordinator. It's your 24/7 liaison. It's your 24/7 communicator to all parties participating in supporting a patient's surgery. It lets the leaders know who's performing and who's underperforming so that they can continue to course correct them. It allows for educators to actually train and develop their folks within their organization. Individually, you know exactly where you are and where you stand. It's the perfect sidekick to leaders that need help and aid from a technology and a system that will never get tired, that will monitor your department 24/7, because the purpose of it, although it's in it has a full capability of locating any instrument, any supply, any instrument set or loaner set. It can follow or locate all of that. But the premise of the technology is to truly be a true support arm for people that are leading, so that they aren't blind running their department. You can run your department from Tahiti if you wanted to with our technology. That's the beautiful part about it. All right, SGG, to end the show, we have to end it on you. What is one thing you want to leave the people that want technology, but they're scared to embrace it? What would you tell that person that's leading an SPD department?
I want to say that don't be fearful of technology. Do the research. I think that when my first tracking system that I ever used back in the day, we didn't research. We just wanted a tracking system. We just wanted to be able to do our trade with a computer. We did not do the research. We didn't really know what we were supposed to look for. Well, that was 25 years ago. Times have changed. Research is there. Do not be afraid of technology. Look at it as a help to your job. It removes so much stress when you can answer a question correctly with real facts. When you know where the loaner tray number 2D is. When you know if the trays came in last night, you know right away. You don't have to go look and think and hope. Technology done the right way will help you. I want to say that you have to be sure that the technology that you're getting is going to meet your needs, and that, understand this, the information going in is only as good as the information you give. If you give half-written pick sheets, you're going to get half-written pick sheets coming out. If you don't have your preference cards are not correct, then they won't be correct in the system. Technology is a helper. It does not remove what you should be doing as a human being. So before you get your system, be sure that you've checked off the boxes of what you need. Your preference cards have to be correct. Your pick sheets have to be correct. Your locator spots have to be correct. There's a lot that has to be done before you go out and buy that Cadillac. So when you get ready to go and buy that Cadillac of a technology system for sterile processing, make sure that you're getting the Cadillac, and now that you go, do your research. Make sure it checks off all the boxes.
This show is all about tracking the toughest challenges in sterile processing. Is that we live in a world where shadowing is considered training.
SPD911, we stand together.
You're not successful if you work in a 9 to 5. Like,